Let's bring in our panel now to discuss all things oil and energy. Eileen Wald, PhD author, Saudi Inc. President, Transversal Consulting, Rohan Reddy, Research Analyst, Global X ETFs. Thank you both for being with us, Eileen and Rohan. I'll start with you. Tell us about, Ellen, what you're looking at when you see the oil prices. I think that's first and foremost.
Yeah, when I look at oil prices right now, I see two things. I see some inertia that's come from this vaccine news. When we started to get that back in November, oil prices really started not just to rise, but to kind of not account for any of the new news about economic shutdowns that previously had really affected oil prices simply because it meant less demand. So there's this inertia coming from vaccine news, and that's happening even despite a very slow rollout in some areas. And then the second thing that we're seeing in oil prices is the impact of the Saudi surprise, which was Saudi Arabia's unilateral decision to cut about 1 million barrels a day of production for the months of February and March. And so that was accompanied by a rise in official selling prices to Asia for Saudi Arabia and a bunch of other producers. And so that's also buoyed oil prices. And now we're even starting to see some forecasts, most notably Goldman Sachs, which is now saying they believe we could hit $65 Brent by this summer.
Yeah, Ellen, I think Ellen's making some great points. Rohan, I know you were also focusing on what Ellen just mentioned, which was Saudi Arabia surprise production cut. Tell me a little bit more about your outlook, Rohan.
Yeah, to Ellen's point, we do see some of the same concepts going on in the oil market today. We actually see oil prices remaining fairly range bound from here on out. I think what you're seeing is, as Ellen was saying, the vaccine rollout has been fairly slow. There have been economic shutdowns that have occurred, especially within developed economies. And right now, the economy is not globally functioning at full force. Could we get some positive pressures from the stimulus rollout, maybe a third round of it, and then even potentially on the monetary policy side with the Fed? Certainly. But I think what has also been a big point here is also what Saudi Arabia has mentioned. They've been acting kind of similar to the Fed in a way within the broader markets, which is you have the Saudi put, which is Saudi Arabia has been acting as almost a last resort type of organization within the oil markets, and they've been buoying those prices there. So that's why we've seen oil prices tick up a little bit from here, but that's part of the reason why we see prices.
Right. Well, Rohan, let me ask you this, because we just were talking about $65 oil. Rohan, a quick thought on fiscal and monetary policy and how that may drive oil, because you talk about being range bound. But if fiscal or monetary policy changes dramatically, would you then expect oil prices to change?
This is a big concept we've been hearing from a lot of people, especially with the news of the Democrats taking Congress, as to whether there's going to be additional stimulus that comes through and will we see finally this inflation trade happen. I think what you're more likely to see is another short round of this reflation that we see taking hold in the market, which is inflation for a short period, just jumps above 2%, and then it pushes through to oil prices for a little, and then it comes back down below 2%. So in the short term, what does that mean for oil traders? I think you could see prices shoot up a little bit, but then come back down into that range bound area long term.
Ellen, tell me more about your outlook. You talk about the shale producers. You also have what the Saudi Arabia production cut announcement that you mentioned, but that, in fact, that's a boon. So when you look at, because we're going to ask also Rohan about investing in oil, but the big picture here, what else is a wild card factor, or what's more likely to happen then?
Well, exactly. And one of the things about Saudi Arabia cutting production is that, first, it doesn't necessarily mean there'll be less oil exported from Saudi Arabia because Aramco has a lot of oil in storage, and they never let a customer request go unfulfilled. So they're likely going to fulfill everything that is asked of them. The question is whether countries, particularly in Asia, are going to want to look for cheaper sources of oil. And one of those sources, there's Libya, there's Iran now coming back more on the market owing to the change in power in the United States, but also the United States is a source of cheaper oil. And when you look at shale oil producers, they've been suffering a lot. We've seen a lot of consolidation in that industry recently. Right. We're going to continue seeing more consolidation, but there's no way to get around the fact that this has raised oil prices for them. And even though CEOs are saying that's not changing their policies anymore, you really can't discount the fact that with WTI at $52 a barrel, they are going to want to put more on the market, particularly if people in China or other parts of Asia want to buy it.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to get some names of some companies that you think are doing some things right. Quickly, Rohan.
Well, right now we like Enterprise Product Partners, for example. They're a pipeline company. I think U.S. oil production specifically, it was very weak in the midst of the pandemic, but we've seen a little bit of a rebound, peaked out at 13 million barrels a day before the pandemic. Now it's at 11 million barrels. Yeah. But we more broadly like the index. So we prefer an ETF, ticker MLPX is one option there for a diversified basket of pipeline stocks.
Yeah. Okay, quickly, Ellen, do you think any company's doing something really right or investing in this group I'm thinking about?
I mean, I think a lot of the bigger shale oil companies have proven their resilience. You've got Occidental, you've got, they have some issues, but they're still chugging along. You've got Pioneer. There are a lot of them. Also, the big ones. Hess is looking actually, I think, at increasing a bit in the Bakken, which is interesting. And so, I think that the big kind of stalwarts that you would expect are going to continue to weather this well and will be able to take advantage of any kind of positives that we're seeing now.
All right, thank you both, Ellen Wald and Rohan Reddy. Ellen Wald, PhD, author, Saudi Inc., president, transversal consultant, and Rohan Reddy, research analyst, Global X ETFs. Great conversation. Thank you both very, very much.